Hey guys, today I'll be repainting this fireplace hearth. It originally was just a wood stain. It's about 40 years old now. And about 5 years ago, I painted it. But over time of the use and wear, and you get the heat from the fireplace, it sort of caused some cracks. Here, I'll show you. Got some paint chips, things that come off, like I said, from just a lot of use. Some of the wood has separated some. You got some, some cracks through here and a couple other places. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my sandpaper, and I've got it's a 220 extra fine, which you don't really need anything rougher than that because, like I said, it's already been, smoothed down before. You just got some chips up. So if you just use that type of sandpaper, work it in real good, work, all the way down through there, even when, it looks fine here, go ahead and do the whole top to get it all sanded down well. Then vacuum up, get all the debris, dust, everything off of it, because you want it nice and clean so that paint will really adhere back to it. So once you get that done, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take just, it's like a crown mold trim caulk that I'll put into all the creases there. Now when you're doing this, make sure when you put it on there, don't put it on there and just leave this stuff outside on the wood, because when it'll dry, it'll look okay, but when you paint it, you'll see the smears of you putting this on. So try to get it just in the cracks there to where that's not going to be an issue. So, and one other thing, now I'm going to tape off the corners. And I do that on this because I whitewashed this a couple years ago, and even if it didn't have the whitewash on there, if you get paint like an enamel or something on here, it's hard to get that off a brick. It just really never looks the same after that, especially if you do it on a whitewash here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my little painter's tape all the way around the perimeter, down through there, and around the edges. At the bottom, you can't see it, but there's a little trim going down through there to the brick down there. And once I get all that done, then I'm going to put a tarp all the way across the top of it, so where if anything drops, that tarp's going to catch it. So, because you really want to avoid, like I said, to get any kind of paint on your brick there, because that definitely causes you a problem. So, like I said just a minute ago, I'm going to do the prep work, get all that ready, and then we'll get to the painting. Hey guys, now I've got the prep done. I've got everything covered. Remember I talked about having the brick there and definitely keeping the paint off that, because like I said, once you try to get paint off the brick, it just really messes it up. So I've got that covered pretty well. I've got also the top. Remember I talked about the paint coming off because of a lot of usage up there. So I've got that sanded down really well. So one of the things I want to mention before I get started is there's a lot of trim work on this. And one of the things you have to be careful about is when you're painting, you're likely going to get some paint, build up, and it's going to like drip down and cause you to have streaks and all that, especially if you get into an area like this. If paint gets set up in there, it's just going to drip down and cause you a problem. So as you're painting, make sure you go back and check on those things as you're moving along, because even when you think you've got it all done, double check, make sure, because like I said, once it dries, then it's more of an issue to try to get, corrected. The other thing I want to talk about is our paint. And we've got emerald, urethane, enamel paint. Now this paint it's a hybrid. It's got more or less the best of both worlds. It's a water base plus an oil base. So you've got a combination of both, which is nice, but it gives you a hard finish. Sort of like they use this on cabinets where there's a lot of wear and usage through that. So that's really a good paint. Sherwin-Williams has that. Now also the brush. Now even when you're doing the combination there, especially a water base, use a nylon brush that is made for this type of paint. Because if you use a natural bristles, that's set up for oil base, and if you're using it for a water base, it gets too much paint in it and it gets limp, and so it's really hard to use that for trim work. So nylon brush is your best way to go. And of course, I got my little handy paint pail to use to make things a little more easier and convenient. So let me get that set up. I just got my paint from the store, so it's been shaken, so I don't have to stir that back up. So let me get that set up and we'll be ready to go. Hey, as I'm doing my prep work, getting this ready to go, I talked about this thing being about 40 years old. And so it's going to have a lot of, it's got nail holes, little indentions and stuff that just occurred over the years. And of course, I want to fix that. And you got your old traditional wood filler that you put in. You got to put it in, sand it down, let it dry. But I found this. It's a plastic wood filler. And a couple of things that really attracted me to this is that it's got a lot of different features. But one of the things is you put it on, that dries quickly. And so when you're putting it in, get it set up real quick because it does dry on you, which is, it's good. So you don't have to wait to paint it. And so once you get it set in, it's just a light sanding, get that ready. And another feature on it I really liked was that, of course, it's paintable. It's also stainable. Because if you deal with the old traditional, a lot of the fillers, that they just don't stain very well. But this one really does a good job. So that's one of the things that drew me to it on that. So I think it's a good product. And if you're doing something like this, give it a try. Guys, I know you can't see it right now, and I'll show you later that putting this on gives her really, the bad spots here, coats it really well just the first coat. But like I said, we're going to put 2 in here, but it's doing really a good job of covering. All right, guys, hey, we've got the top finished, got that finished cut. Now we're going to get into the more the tedious area with all the trim work. So this is where we really got to pay close attention to what we're doing. Now, one of the, I think, key things is when you're doing trim like this is less on the brush is better than too much on the brush as far as when you spread it out. That's where you get into your runs going down through there. So be careful of that. Like I said, less on the brush is better than a lot on the brush. You see here, I've already got a drip coming down, and it happens quickly and easily. So you just really got to watch for those. You see what I'm saying? As you go along, just look back at where you've been just to see what it's doing, because it'll show pretty quick if it's going to drip on you. All right, I'll stop, take a little break. But I want you to see, I finished all this area here and this back side, and then I started here and I stopped. I wanted to give this a few minutes to go back and check to make sure there's no drips coming down on any of the trim work. So it all looks good, we're good to go. And so I'm gonna continue on with this, and I'll get over to this post and I'll start and then I'll stop and then I'll go back and look over this right here. So make sure you don't have any drips coming down on the corners. And of course, we talked about it puddling up right here and dripping down. So you definitely want us to avoid that, because the thing is, once it dries and gets set, when you're looking at it, actually, that's something that turns out very noticeable. And it sort of takes really away from how nice it's supposed to look. So take your time. I've said that before, take your time in what you're doing, because if you do, you're going to get a really nice finish as far as what you're looking for. So we're going to keep going, and once I get it done, cleaned up, then we'll come back and I'll let you look at it closely and see how it turned out. All right, so now we're in the cleanup phase, and just a couple of things I want to share with you. If you've got any paint left in your little bucket there, get as much out as you can to put it back into your big bucket there, because you want to save as much as you can, because this stuff is expensive. And so that's ready to clean now. Now, when you do that, make sure you get this round clean. Get all the paint out that you possibly can with your brush, with a rag, because when you put this back on and you get ready to nail it back, hammer it back down, paint, if it's in that round, it will go everywhere. And that's another problem you don't have to deal with. So make sure you do that before you start getting it back in place. So another thing is, I've got plastic down, you may have a tarp down, and you're probably going to have debris, paint, drops all over it. So when you get ready, roll it within inside itself. Bring it all to the center to where anything that was outside is now inside, because you don't want to cause you another problem once you've got this job finished. So do that, roll it up, put it in a bag, and get it out of here. So I hope these couple of things help you, and now we'll just finish getting cleaned up. All right, guys, so we finished up, got everything done. So I hope that some of the things I did along the ways helps you in some of your projects. And if it did, would you hit like or subscribe? And I really appreciate y'all.